So I've got a question for you guys. Who here feels like you get amazing sleep on a consistent basis? Let me see your hand up real high. Be honest. Okay, so I wanted to see what I was dealing with here. And it was a very small percentage of people that raised their hands. So when I think about being superhuman, I think about the superheroes that we all grew up idolizing. And you think about Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. They all had very powerful physical qualities of strength. So we're talking strength, speed, endurance, and lasers. All right, lots of lasers. They also had very powerful characteristics of virtue as well. So honor, courage, perseverance, but also they had an undying drive to do something for the greater good. And I wanted so badly to be a superhero. And for me, my visions of being a superhero were derailed. When I was 20 years old, an MRI revealed that I had the spine of an 80-year-old person when I was just 20 years old. Well, at least that's what my physician told me. And it was devastating. It really brought my whole world spiraling out of control. Spoiler alert, everything's obviously okay now. But at the time, it really broke me. So this negative kind of connotation that was given to me of this nocebo effect led to me coming in with a nuisance of a pain, this sciatic nerve pain, to chronic pain, debilitating pain. And I was on a series of medication for about 2 years. And I was literally at a place where I was afraid to move because the pain was so bad that it put me in fear of just standing up. A lot of those medications were for sleep. And this is because my biggest struggle each night was when I laid my head down on my pillow. And this is because, on a scale of 1 to 10, if a 1 is like you're pain-free and you feel really good, and a 10 is like the most excruciating, terrible pain you've ever experienced, I would get a level 10 pain. So I'm just thinking about it now. Man. But it would happen for just a split second, a quarter of a second, and then it'd be gone. It was like a ghost. And if I changed positions wrong while I was sleeping, this pain would jar me out of sleep. So it was like a terrifying thing. It was a nightmare. And from that place, really understanding what I know today, this is where all my struggles were residing. But everything changed, and this is where the good part comes in. For me, everything changed when I made a decision to get well. Now, most people don't really get this, so don't let that happen to you. Please understand what I'm saying. Most of the time when we decide to do something with our health, with our finances, with our relationship, it's more like wishful thinking. Like, I'll try, I'll give it a try, or I hope this works, or I wish this would work. But when you make a real decision, the word decision is from the Latin de, meaning from, and kaidere, which means to cut. So when you make a real decision about something, you cut away the possibility of anything else but that thing happening. And I decided I was going to get well no matter what. And from that point, and I'm a very analytical person, as you guys will find out today, so I put a plan together. It wasn't just like the clouds parted and everything was great in my life and a unicorn popped out. But I put a plan together and I executed on that plan. It entailed 3 specific things. 1 was changing the way that I was eating. I was on what I call the tough diet at the time, typical university food, all right? My cells were made of Papa John's. They have Papa John's in Vancouver, right? Anyways, so I started to give my body the raw materials that it needed to actually regenerate my tissues, all right? And we could have did the whole talk on just that piece. Also, I changed my movement practices, basically from non-existent to something, all right? But the biggest thing was I improved my sleep quality. And this was amazing. This was really, really powerful because, and this is an important truth to take away today, if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. If you're not sleeping, you're not healing. And there were certain things I was doing during my waking hours that was showing up for me great when I laid my head down at night. And that led to, over the course of 6 weeks, and by the way, I'd gained about 50 pounds over this 2-year process of not doing anything. I lost 28 pounds. The pain I've been experiencing every day of my life that had me in fear for 2 years was gone. I increased my bone density. I lost that weight. And I also, my 2 ruptured discs that were in my spine, my L4 and L5S1 discs, retracted and healed on their own. So what I want to share with you guys today is just how much sleep impacts your body composition, all right? It was a huge component in me losing body fat. And by the way, I didn't just look like a guy who lost weight. I didn't go from like an apple shape to a smaller apple. I literally changed my body composition. And a big part of this was sleep. So here's the thing. When we think about changing our body composition, most of the time we think about exercise. But the reality is, exercise actually gets you in worse shape. So let me give you an example. If we were all together right now and we go and do a workout together, we're actually in better shape before we start the workout than after. So if we were to immediately get some blood work done, a hormone panel done, your blood sugar would be dysfunctional. All right, your stress hormones would be elevated. Blood pressure would be high, body temperature would be off. We could probably get you diagnosed with something. But all you did was work out. So exercise is known as a hormetic stressor. It's a beneficial stress when your body is able to recover from it. And our biggest recovery, by far, is getting sleep. All right, so this is a stimulus. Sleep is what actually makes you fit. I hope that makes sense. It's very, very important to understand this. So to take this a step further and to talk about not just from the exercise component, but just life, just your daily living life, if you're not even exercising, how does sleep transform your body? And there was a shocking sleep and fat loss study funded by the National Institute of Health. And what they did was they took individuals and they had them go through two different phases. They put them on a calorie-restricted diet, which is something I was taught to do in a traditional university, which is not exactly what you're supposed to do in the first place, but that's a whole other story. They put them on a calorie-restricted diet, and they allowed them to get 8.5 hours of sleep, all right? And they tracked all their metrics. Another phase of the study, same exact people, same exact diet, but now they sleep deprived them. They took away 3 hours of their sleep, now they're getting 5.5 hours of sleep. At the end of the study, they found that when individuals were well rested, they lost 55% more body fat than when they were sleep deprived. Just from sleeping, 55% more body fat. You can't get those kind of numbers from changing a diet, this diet versus this diet. All right, that's how powerful it is. But my question is always why? What's going on behind the scenes that's making this happen? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So first and foremost, we'll talk a little bit about HGH. Has anybody talked about HGH today? Any of the speakers? Good. Human growth hormone, also known as growth hormone. This is one of the most important hormones that we produce, all right? And it's produced by a pituitary gland. Now, this hormone is also known as the youth hormone. Number one, it is a driver of energy. This is why kids have so much energy. Kids have so much HGH. It's absurd. But also, it's muscle sparing, protein sparing, so it helps to defend your muscle tissue from being lost. It also is a potentiator of building muscle, okay? And one of the big hallmark things to understand is that muscle is your body's fat-burning machinery. Okay, the more muscle you have on your frame, the more fat you're burning, all right? It's very expensive for your body to carry muscle around because it burns a lot of energy, all right? HGH helps that process. And here's the thing, you get the biggest secretion of HGH when you're getting sleep. This is when it happens. This is when the magic happens, all right? Now, the problem is that, and this was the Journal of Psychiatry and Neuroscience, all right, the Journal of Psychiatry and Neuroscience, they found that when you're sleep deprived just one night, this accelerated increase of HGH that you get literally disappears. It just doesn't happen, all right? So you have a hormonal rhythm for all of your hormones. HGH is the most sleep dependent, all right? So these researchers found that your release of HGH just disappears, all right? Not cool. So and also this is happening predominantly during deep anabolic sleep, okay? So that's number one, HGH. And when this whole fat loss equation, that's one of the things happening behind the scenes that makes it work. Melatonin. Everybody knows about melatonin now. It's this glorified sleep hormone, but it's so much more. Melatonin is also a very potent fat-burning hormone. Without melatonin being produced, you're missing on this very powerful metabolic machinery being, number one, produced, number two, being upregulated in its metabolic activity, okay? For you to produce melatonin, you have to have a dark cycle, but we'll come back to that. And by the way, I want extra time too. All right, next one up, cortisol. Everybody knows about cortisol today. It's this kind of glorified stress hormone. Cortisol is not a bad guy. It's just a problem when it's produced at the wrong time and in the wrong amounts. But cortisol can really screw things up. It's kind of like, they're a pretty good guy, but when they start drinking, they start messing up stuff. So basically, cortisol, when you're sleep deprived, it's kind of like cortisol gets drunk, all right? And it really does start to mess things up. Because cortisol has this really interesting ability to do a process called gluconeogenesis, which is to literally create glucose. And it does this by breaking down that valuable muscle tissue you have. It's a stress response, all right? One of the first things that happens that we see clinically when you're sleep deprived is cortisol goes up. The University of Chicago found that it doesn't just happen then that night, it also screws up cortisol the next day as well. Okay, and it starts to create this vicious cycle. So, sleep deprivation is a catalyst for dysregulation of cortisol, all right? And one of the most important things to take away from today is that you can overeat your way fat, you can undermove your way fat, you can overstress your way fat, and you can undersleep your way fat, okay? Because of what happens with cortisol. Insulin. When you hear insulin, what do you think of? Diabetes. It goes hand in hand in our lexicon and in our minds. But insulin is one of the most important hormones for you to be alive. It allows your cells to store energy. All right? It's very, very important. But insulin is also kind of like your body's major fat storing hormone. Now, with that said, one of the first things we see again, and this was University of Chicago as well, and what they did was they took test subjects and they put them into a sleep lab for 8 days, and they tracked everything that happened. For those days, they allowed them to get adequate sleep, normal sleep, so 8 hours. And for the other 4 days, they sleep deprived them, so now they're only getting 4.5 hours of sleep. At the end of the study, they found that when they were sleep deprived, they were 30% more insulin resistant, just from 4 days, okay? Insulin resistance is a classic sign of that is belly fat, okay? So with dysregulation of insulin, we start to see these problems happen. So insulin is a really important thing to be mindful of, all right? We want to take care to not have insulin being produced at the wrong time and also creating insulin resistance. Leptin. So leptin is our body's kind of glorified satiety hormone, all right? You feel more satisfied. And Stanford University found that just a short sleep debt, just 24 hours, drastically reduces the production and circulation of leptin in your system, okay? Just a small amount of sleep debt. So what happens is that now you're hungrier, all right? And that is obviously not leaning itself towards fat loss, which we're gonna come back to and talk about in a minute. Leptin, its antithesis, its super nemesis is ghrelin, okay? And ghrelin is your body's kind of glorified hunger hormone. And researchers discovered that, again, sleep deprivation immediately leads to an increase in your ghrelin, okay? So this is a recipe for disaster. Now, and what they did was they looked at test subjects' brains after just 24 hours of sleep deprivation. This is a small sleep debt that many of us have done many times before. And what they found immediately is that there was decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex. That part of the brain went cold. All right, so this is the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, distinguishing between right and wrong, for social control, all right, your so-called willpower. Couple that with, they saw this heightened increase in activity in the amygdala, which is the more kind of primitive part of your brain that's really mainly concerned about survival of self, all right? Maybe sex, probably drinking, all right? But these are the situations that we see when we start making poor decisions when we're sleep deprived. You know, most of our decisions, if we went around and did a survey and people were honest, we made some poor decisions, maybe in, you know, food choices or people choices, maybe you hooked up with, out late. Your brain is literally turning off. The part of your brain that's like, wait, that's not a good idea, all right? He's way too hairy. So this is what's going on in our brains when we're trying to battle with our diet and our exercise, but if we're sleep deprived, we're putting ourselves at a huge disadvantage. And then we go to the dark side. All right? Don't be that guy or that girl. So now I want to talk about solutions. The first problem is our culture looks down upon sleep, right? Sleep is for the weak. These are the type of things that we say. But I'm trying to change that to sleep deprivation is for the stupid. No disrespect. But it really is, because, this whole idea of sleep is for the weak, what Bain is really trying to say, he just had sleep apnea. That's that year 2057 sleep apnea CPAP right there. He was just mistaken. All right, sleep is not for the weak. So we have to address the cultural connotation that sleep is a bad thing. Okay, and that you can't be successful if you're not, if you're sleeping too much, right? The reality is, when we're sleep deprived, we're radically sacrificing quality. And there's a big difference between doing work and actually being effective. All right, I already showed you some things going on in your brain. There's a lot of other stuff we can talk about today, but I want to get too in-depth in this part, but I just want you to understand the cultural connotation of sleep is a problem we have to stop. All right, and so we have to address that thing in our mind too. You're not being lazy, you're not missing the boat if you're getting sleep, you're being smart. All right, and I have this really unique opportunity to know some of the top people in the world in like financial sphere, in the health sphere, and I'm telling you guys, like, they're all getting on board with really looking at their lifestyle and focusing on getting high quality sleep. All right, it's a complete 180 has been taking place. Here's one of the big issues. So we're gonna talk about some solutions now. Harvard researchers have confirmed the blue light spectrum coming from our devices at night, only at night, not during the day, suppresses your melatonin, okay? It's a fact. Smartphones, tablets, our television, desktop laptops, those things, your brain has evolved with day and night cycle. So when it gets dark outside, but yet you still got this information coming into your optical receptors telling your brain that it's daytime effectively. So it's producing more daytime hormones, namely cortisol, all right? So what they also found, couple that with elevated cortisol. So in fact, being on a device at night elevates your cortisol. And cortisol and melatonin have kind of an inverse relationship. If cortisol is elevated, melatonin's on the ground floor, and vice versa, all right? So, and here's the number to think about. They said that for every hour you're on your device at night, you suppress melatonin for 30 minutes, okay? So if you're on your device for 3 hours at night, even if you go to bed and you're unconscious, because again, there's a difference between passing out and getting high quality sleep, you're unconscious, but you're not producing adequate melatonin, which I like to think of melatonin as sort of like a manual gear shift to move you in and out of your sleep cycles efficiently. So this is why people who might even get 8 hours of sleep still wake up feeling terrible, all right, because we're not producing the right hormones. So I hope that makes sense. So what do we do? Solutions. And some people in here, I know you like, I heard of this before. But are you doing it? Okay, I've been talking about this for 5 years now. I would hope some people have heard about it at this point. So, number one, Flux for your desktop laptops. Download this immediately. It's a free tool, and it automatically pulls out the most troublesome sleep-sucking spectrum of light. That guy's like, what is it? Flux, F.LUX. F.LUX, all right? I've been using it for about 5 years, actually. And it, again, automatically pulls out the spectrum of light from your screen that most suppresses melatonin and elevates cortisol, all right? For your iPhones, it's already on there. It's a tool now. It's called Night Shift. It's a tool built into your phone. You can set it and forget it, and it will pull the most troublesome spectrum of light from your screen automatically. Why would a multi-billion-dollar company like Apple do that? They know, like, this is, potentially it's like lawsuit, right? Your device caused me to have diabetes, right? Okay? It's kind of like the whole supersize me thing. So, also, then what about television? What about the ambient lights in our house? If you want to get really geeked out and you don't mind looking a little weird, you get you some blue light blocking glasses, all right? Some of them look cool, but when I started doing this, if you guys go back and look at my very first or second Instagram post, don't. But I'm wearing like these big hardware store, like, I can't believe my wife still like did it with me, you know? Like it was, I looked insane. But now there's some really cool ones, okay? So those are some solutions, some little hacks, but the number one thing for you to do, number one thing is to give yourself a screen curfew. All right, give yourself a screen curfew. I'll let you bask in the greatness of this meme that I made. Why when we get off our devices? It's hard, we're addicted. I just talked with Dr. Robert Lustig, who wrote Sugar, the Bitter Truth. Brilliant guy, he just wrote The Hacking of the American Mind and talking about the pathways and how we get addicted to our devices, okay? And so the internet, specifically our social media, really traps this dopamine cycle. Dopamine drives us to seek things, okay? It's really good. It helped human evolution because it drove us to be more, to look for more, to find more, to discover more. But today, our devices are taking advantage of that because the internet is perfect for looking for stuff, right? There's infinite stuff to look for. But you would go crazy if you don't find something eventually. And you'd get a little opioid hit when you find something, okay? So it makes you want to keep going, keep looking. So think about Instagram. Seek, find, seek, find, seek, find. Every time you scroll. And it's creating this feedback, dopamine, opioid feedback loop in your brain, making you addicted, all right? This is where you find that situation where you might be working, but you reach over and you check your phone. Just you hit an app, open an app, and just, let's check it for a minute. Let's check Twitter for a minute. Let's check Facebook for a minute. Next thing you know, 30 minutes later, internet black hole, all right? So this is why it's difficult. In order to get past this, you have to replace the time on your device with something of greater or equal value, okay? I'm gonna throw this out there, but I don't know if it's gonna stick, but you can actually talk to a person. Just try it. I don't know if you like it. Talk to your significant other, your best friend, your mom, whatever. Talk to another person. For folks that have kids, hang out with your kids. Have sex, if you have a significant other. Hopefully that's more entertaining than Facebook. I don't know. I don't know what your situation is. Next up, we got two more things to cover real quick. You want to get yourself plenty of good sleep nutrients, okay? This is that new stuff. You know about this, all right? All the interweb stuff. Good sleep nutrients. This is something I've really been pushing into popular culture. There are certain nutrients that are key building blocks for sleep-related neurotransmitters and sleep-related hormones, all right? Precursors to those things, if that makes sense. So if you think about vitamin C, for example, everybody knows about it for your immune system. Vitamin C, the Public Library of Science found that vitamin C deficiency is related to individuals who have a tendency to wake up frequently during the night, all right? So people who have interrupted sleep, vitamin C deficiency could be one of the causative factors. So just FYI. And we might, again, think we're getting high-quality vitamin C, but there are different types of vitamin C, all right? And some are more bioavailable than others. So I recommend food first because your genes have been eating food the longest rather than the supplement that came out last week, all right? So, kiwis, bell peppers, lemon, that kind of thing. But then there's concentrated, these superfoods that have very dense sources like camu berry, camu, amla berry, and acerola cherry. Those are a couple. Okay, and I could do this all day, guys. So that's one. Number two, this might be the biggest game changer for you guys to improve your sleep quality as far as this is concerned, magnesium. Magnesium is responsible for over 325 biochemical processes that we know about, all right? That means there's 325 things that your body can't do or do efficiently if you're deficient in magnesium. Problem? Over 80% of the population is chronically deficient in magnesium. Not just deficient, chronically deficient. And it's because it's kind of like an anti-stress mineral. And it gets zapped from your system very quickly. So you need a continuous, I'm very much food first guy in my practice, in my clinical practice, but this is something that 9 out of 10 people, I'll get them on a supplement as well for magnesium. There's different types, citrate, sulfate, yada, yada. My favorite means is topical, so transdermal, rubbing onto your skin. Because if you take too much of a supplemental magnesium, it pulls a lot of water to your bowels. It can cause disaster pants, AKA diarrhea. all right? So you don't want to do, but some people, they need that. They keep it moving, all right? Just be careful with that. If you got plans, don't. Rub it on your skin, your body will absorb as much as it can use, all right? So, topical application on the skin. All right, last point here. American Academy of Sleep Medicine confirmed that meditation is an effective treatment for insomnia. They did a study with 2 months with non-meditators, put them through a meditation practice for 2 months. They improved on every single quotient, every single area that we look at when we're monitoring sleep. It improved sleep latency, so they fall asleep faster, wake after sleep onset, so you wake up less frequently, total sleep time, sleep efficiency, so actually getting high quality sleep where your brain's going to the proper places that it needs to go, because it's not about sleeping more, it's about sleeping better. All right, my book isn't called Sleep More, it's called Sleep Smarter. All right, that's what it's really about, it's efficient sleep. We get all of that through meditation, okay? So if you're not doing this, you're like, I've been meaning to employ this practice, because they found meditating in the daytime helps you to sleep better at night, all right? So utilize this, and what it is, in my closing point, is it helps to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. When you start to breathe, just changing your breathing. And crazy thing is, I think you're thinking about your breath now, aren't you? Were you not breathing before? It's weird, right? This is part of your autonomic nervous system, okay? That means it's automatic, kind of, and also your heart is on that same channel, your digestion, but you can't jump in and mess with those, but you can for your breathing. You can literally jump in and grab the steering wheel. And it's an evolutionary advantage that we developed, because sometimes we get stressed out for the wrong thing. And we need to be able to calm ourselves down. Breathing, meditation practice can do that. Turn off that fight or flight sympathetic and turn on the parasympathetic, rest and digest.